Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. It's 11. Oh my God. My name is Rosario Ubiera Minaya, and I'm the Executive Director of Amplify Latinx. I welcome all of you to our Zoom channel. We are excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us to yet another webinar that we are putting together as a series of virtual webinars and conversations to provide assistance, resources, and support to our small business community. If we get a chance to see the presentation, I will go over the slides, but we are excited to have Priya Lane joining us today for this webinar on commercial leasing and supporting small businesses. So we are Amplify Latinx. We have launched a series of virtual webinars since we started with the crisis with the COVID-19. And we are just finding ways of, again, getting closer to our businesses, minority-owned businesses, Black and brown businesses, and making sure that we are providing support and the resources and information that you need at this time for immediate crisis, but also to prepare for recovery and relief. So we are happy that we are able to provide this information. So as part of this, we have been engaging many of our different partners and in supporting with providing these resources. And for this particular series, we are very excited that we can partner with Lawyers for Civil Rights, and Priya is part of that group and has been an amazing supporter and a great wealth of knowledge in providing this information and these topics. So can we go to the next slide? I don't think I have the controls. I do want to invite you before we start to make sure that you follow us on social media. We are big on social media. We provide a lot of information through our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you can follow us, that would be great. Those are our social media handles. We also included the ones for Lawyers for Civil Rights. So please follow them as well, because they also provide a great wealth of resources through their social media platforms. And I want to go over logistics before we move on. I'm sure that many of you are already very savvy on Zoom, but I just want to make sure that we cover the basics so we are all on the same page about how to navigate the platform and how to participate on this webinar. You all gonna be muted during this session because this is a webinar. So you're only gonna be able to see the presenters and the actual slides, the PowerPoint presentation. But if you wanna ask a question during the presentation, please use the chat box and we're gonna be able to see those questions right away. Those are, the controls are on your control bar. So just use that for posting a question, but you can also raise your hand and I'll make sure that I communicate with you and let you in and ask the question at the end of the session when we do question and answer. We also want to let you know that we're recording today, and this recording is going to be sent to you in an email at the end of the webinar. And also we're going to include resources and other links there, as well as a survey. And through this survey, we're just going to ask you a few questions. Just take a few minutes to give us some feedback, because we continue curating this series and shaping this information. And we want to make sure that we bring you topics and resources that are relevant to you. So make sure that you just take a few minutes and let us know what you think and what are some of the questions that you might have or other topics that you want to explore. With that said, I also want to say that we are broadcasting this in Facebook Live. So if you want to tell your friends to join, that'll be great. And the more the merrier, right? So now I'm going to introduce Priya Lane from Lawyers from Civil Rights. And Priya is going to share her screen, but also introduce herself with more information, as well as go over the webinar. So the floor is yours, Priya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. So thank you, everybody. So my name is Priya Lane. I work for Lawyers for Civil Rights. We're a legal nonprofit, and I direct our small business work. So we help minority, immigrant, and women-owned small businesses through the life of their business. So any legal questions you have, or any any issues you might have, please contact us, and we'll make sure that we send out my email address so you can call or email and ask us if you have any questions. I'm going to talk briefly just about commercial leases right now during COVID-19. During this crisis, a lot of people are unable to pay their rent for their small business in the same way, and have some questions about that. So first, I just want to go over kind of terms that all commercial leases have that we can talk about. So commercial leases are not like residential leases. The landlords don't have that same level of responsibility that they would have to a residential tenant. So, the rent that you pay in your apartment, that relationship to your landlord is different than the relationship with your landlord that you have in a commercial lease. It means that everything, it's just a contract, and so everything has to be in the document that governs the relationship. So having a written lease is really important, otherwise your rights are very limited. And I know a lot of people don't have written leases, but having a written lease where both parties are on the same page is very, very important. So the landlord is called the lessor, and the tenant, which would be you as a small business owner, is called the lessee. And it always has the description of the property being leased. It'll normally have the square footage and things like that. It'll say your rent, your base rent. So that's what you pay each month. There's different ways that can be structured. So if you have a gross lease, this is the amount you pay, and it includes all utilities. You just pay that amount to the landlord each month. The landlord pays the utilities, and you don't have to worry about costs outside of that. There's also leases called triple net leases, which means you pay a base rent, so just an amount per square foot, and then on top of that, you'll pay all utilities separately. So just like you do maybe at home, you'll have a meter and you'll pay directly NSTAR or Columbia Gas or something like that for all of your different utilities. So there's different ways that can be structured as well. Often you might have to pay common area maintenance charges depending on the way your business is set up. You might have some common areas that you share with other small businesses, bathrooms, hallways, things like that. So you might have to pay that monthly or yearly or whatever to maintain the building itself. And then always the term will be in there. So the term is how long the lease is for. So the idea is that a shorter term can be better, especially for newer businesses, because you want to not be stuck in a lease for a really long time if you're not sure if the business is going to keep going for longer than that, right? And so say you have a shorter term, but then you want to be able to stay there if things are going well. So you want a short term with lots of extension rights. So I get to say first if I want to stay or leave. And if I want to stay, I know exactly how much my rent will go up at the onset. So it'll say your rent say your term is a year. So your rent for year one will be X, and then year two will be X plus $50 a square foot. And then year three might be X plus $100 a square foot, something like that. And so you can budget and know exactly, okay, if I stay for 2 years, this is how much it would be. If I stay for 3 years, this is how much it would be. And your landlord can't just kick you out without checking with you first if you want to stay. Other things that are in commercial leases is you need to make sure that your planned use for your small business is anticipated in the commercial lease. So that you as the tenant should try and make the use provision as broad as possible. So say you're an art gallery, you want to make sure that you are allowed to have food in there, caterers, maybe a bar, if you want to have openings for your gallery. Maybe you want to have dance performances sometimes. So you want to make the use provision really broad so you don't have to keep going back to your landlord and saying, I want to have this event on this day, is this okay with you, right? You want to be able to use the space for whatever you might use it for. So if you are required to still obtain permission for a change of use or to do something special, you want to make that as flexible as possible. So you can't really deny me unless there's a really good reason why, and you have to give me that reason, and you don't require a ton of advance notice, right? So you want to talk about all of that on the onset before signing the lease. So also you probably want to be able to sublet it. So you want to be able to rent it out to someone else, either partially or wholly, depending on the structure of the building. If maybe you don't need as much space and you want to make some extra money, or maybe you don't want the space anymore, but your lease is not up. And so that's some way to not have to keep paying for that if the business closes or something like that. So in this situation as well, if the landlord said, okay, maybe you can sublet it, but I need to consent to that, you need to make sure that it cannot be unreasonably withheld. So they need to have a very good reason why a business that's similar to yours couldn't come in there and why that makes a difference for them. So that's all stuff that should always be in the lease regardless. During COVID-19, during this crisis, there's a lot of other rent relief issues, right? So people are not able to work, they're not able to be in their building, and so they want to renegotiate with their landlord. And so when negotiating with your landlord right now, I think it's really important to really lay out the specifics of what you're looking for. It's always better to go to them proactively and try to negotiate rather than just not paying the rent and trying to ignore it and just seeing what happens. You could say, I want to defer, which means I want to pay my rent later when I'm back in. So just add that amount in for maybe over the next 6 months, break it up. Or I want to put it at the end, or things like that. Or use my security deposit to pay this rent, and I'll give you money later for when I can in a couple months when I'm back in business to replenish the security deposit. Think creatively about what works for you in your business and then propose that proactively. So defer means pay later. Abate means don't pay at all, right? So maybe you have a really great landlord who says, you know what, everyone's going through hard times right now. I'm going to give you 2 months abatement. You don't have to pay me for the next 2 months. So you can propose things. They can, come back with other options. So try to engage with your landlord about what's going on instead of just not paying. The landlord might say you need to pay it off over a certain period, might add an extra month to your lease, might just let you not pay, right? But you're not going to know unless you proactively talk to your landlord about it. So you would add an amendment to your lease to commemorate whatever deal you strike. You want to make sure you're not waiving any rights, like the extension options we talked about in the slide before. When you do this, you want to make sure the amendment is just about these 2 months and doesn't change anything else in the lease that you don't want it to change. I think an important note too is that you might have an amazing landlord who says, yes, let's have you abate, let's do the amendment. If they're still paying mortgage on the property, will have to go to their lender, so the bank that owns their mortgage, and check with them. And sometimes the bank will not let them modify the lease, will not let them put an amendment on the lease. And so that's something to watch out for, and something that might kind of hurt you in this process as well. And then sort of know you're out of luck, because the landlord wants to help you, but he is beholden to the bank who owns the property still, and he's still paying mortgage for that. So what's amazing right now is that during this crisis, there's a moratorium on commercial, that should say evictions, sorry, not leases. There's a moratorium on commercial evictions, which means that you cannot be evicted from your property right now. So there's never any self-help eviction in Massachusetts. Your landlord can never just come and change the lock on you, right? But in addition to that, right now, courts are not hearing eviction proceedings. So a landlord cannot evict a tenant for non-payment of rent from April 20th to August 18th, or 45 days after the emergency declaration has been lifted, whichever one comes sooner. And the governor can also extend the August 18th date, which means that if a landlord threatens to evict you right now, they can't until September at the earliest, probably. And so you would say, I can't pay rent right now, and you have to proactively say, because of COVID-19, because my business isn't open, because I've lost so much business that I'm not bringing enough revenue in to pay, whatever the reason is, proactively say that it's because of the current emergency that you can't pay. Landlords also may not impose late fees or notify a credit reporting agency as long as you say that proactive, I can't pay right now because of financial impact of COVID-19. So this doesn't mean that the landlord can't try to make you pay later, right? The landlord can try to recover lost rent later, but it does mean that you have this grace period, and hopefully courts are also more likely to be really favorable of small businesses that were not able to pay during this period. When you're back in business, you're back in the space, you should start paying your rent again. So you shouldn't just assume that you never have to pay your rent again. But when you're back in business, when you can, that's when you should start paying again. Another thing to keep an eye out is you might have insurance policies that were required because of your lease that can have some money that you can access right now. So lots of insurance policies have special clauses as part of the property insurance that you're required to have as part of a lot of commercial leases that cover sort of insured losses that you might be experiencing because of the financial hardship around the crisis right now. So if you have a property insurance policy, I would call your insurance agent, ask them about this, tell them about what's going on, and see if there's anything kind of creatively you can do there to access some money around your commercial lease. And so I think that that is my last slide here. I don't know if anyone has any questions. So Rosario or Wendy, you guys, you know, are free to sort of see if anyone has any questions or anything. You guys let me know.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes. Someone, yes, there's a question. How quick is the insurance turnaround on claims?
So you should talk to your insurance. That person should talk to their insurance agent, their insurance broker, to see what makes the most sense. Going through your broker, they have a special relationship with the insurance company, can be the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna put my, or maybe you guys can send out and put in the Facebook chat my email address. And so if people have any questions about this stuff that's like personal to their own lease that they don't want to talk about in front of everyone, happy to talk to them directly.
So we can send them to you directly, referring.
Yes. Yeah.
And if there are any other resources, any links, any information that you want to share, just send it to us and we can put it on the thank you email.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap this up, but Priya, thank you so much for your time and for sharing this information with us. As I mentioned at the beginning, we recorded this so we can not only show it in our Facebook page, but also on our YouTube channel, as well as make it available for our membership that couldn't join us today. And we'll reconnect again. I'm sure we're gonna get questions, and we're gonna be able to just develop another opportunity for you to come back and continue answer questions from our membership and our business owners. So I appreciate your time and I appreciate you, and thank you so much. We stay tuned.
Right. Bye.
Bye.